no additions to the agenda. Folks, right? Good evening. It's 6:30. I'd like to call the Beta School Board District meeting to order, and I would seek approval of the agenda with the additions of 7.4 on personnel and 7.5 on fundraisers. Second. Motion is second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Agenda. Brian, do you have any public comment? No. Hearing none, we should move on to our information discussion phase. Dave Cruz, I believe you're going to be up.
Well, in your board package, you got an energy conservation report from basically Alliant, which is a little task group that represents them. And there's a lot of details in here. Wordings we have changed, but on page 5, it kind of puts it into a short version, which is, we spent $820,000 that was above the minimum that they would have spec'd out as a basis of their design. Part of that's a geothermal field, which we desired to do anyway. So as accurate as these numbers are, we probably would have done some of it anyway, just because that's our interest. So instead of the 7-year payback, which mathematically is what that calculates out to be, we would have done better than that anyway. So we're going to get our money back one way or the other, no matter how you look at it. But the Alliant incentive is $117,000. So you take 700,000 divided by 100,000 in energy savings per year, and you get that back in 7 years.
So if we receive, that's a rebate, correct?
Basically, yeah.
So is that going to come to us at some point?
Brian, I don't think you've seen that yet, have you? Because it's fairly recent. I would
So
imagine it would take a while.
where will those dollars get placed? So we take in $117 from the line rebate. Where are we going to put that those dollars? Just wait, so we don't have the money, so I guess we have time to discuss it. But I just asked, is that a general? Is that a middle school? Is that bond funds? Because that's, I'm just asking. Just we'll sneak up on that another night.
But the rest of the packet kind of describes where, compared to what their basic design is, where we place. And then back on page 15, it just gives you a little more detail on how they figured it out. And it's basically all electric.
So when they're talking about lighting power, that's just moving to LED lighting.
Yeah, they take the efficiency of the lamps that we have compared to what their basic design is, and they compare it, and that's the percentage over and above. Anything better than what they would like is where you get the extra incentives, and part of that $117,000.
We were talking last meeting, I'm sure you probably heard about what the floor in here, what we do in here, because that will be something you're going to bring to us, I understand, going forward. But Leanne wisely opined that if we're going to be in here doing things, that we probably should be looking to LED light it as we do have the funds.
Yep, I'm underway already to start looking at the pricing on that.
Okay.
And put a package together, and then bring that to you as a Gates Hall package.
When you do get down to a very granular level, I was surprised to see where the motion sensing, all the lighting, how that does on a savings basis. I highlighted a number of places, and as when you get to the occupancy sensor lights, I mean, that's, if we're going to change anything, that's what you want to see.
Yeah, it's a little learning curve. Sometimes people don't move enough and the lights go off, so you got to do the dance to bring the lights back on. But
It's on them.
so yeah, so it's a little learning curve, a little education piece, and it's really hard to train people just don't walk out of the room without turning
occupancy sensors.
Yeah.
What's DOAS is probably going to be an easy acronym, but what's that stand for?
Dedicated outside air supply, I believe it's the 4 letters. It's the 3 rooftop units in that.
Sure.
One serves just the gym and the other 2 serve the other half of the building.
Anybody else? I can probably have a nice sidebar conversation with Dave about a lot of stuff that, you know, if anybody heard something interesting, got anything that from this land audit that you'd like to ask him about? It does resound no.
Just a nice thing to keep in perspective here, $100,943 in electrical savings every year that we pay off those expenditures at 7, in 8, year 8, 9, 10, and 11 every year after that, especially as the costs go up, you continue to save that money.
I would say we would be doing the future a great favor if we took just a little portion of this meetings packet and gave it to the next guys. The fact that at some point they're gonna have to build, and here's what, you know, you need to be doing on a spec basis. So cost of ownership is a big chunk too, not just purchase.
$100,000 over 10 years, that's a big number.
Big number. Well, good.
10 times 100 is 7 digits.
What was the number we had out last packet? 4.25 we spent with Alliant. That's about right. $425,000 in Alliant build a year in this district. Well, I guess anywhere we could save some money, we should probably be looking.
And we will be looking.
So now when we move, whatever we do in here, I'd like to think that's also part of the intent, is that as we change out, make it hours, that reduce it, because we don't have geo here. This is a traditional e-cool. So. Anything else you'd like to add? I can't get any questions out of the board on it. Well, I guess your review starts. So appreciate this. That's a good read, and that's a good story. People that are taxpayers in this district are very well served by what was just done on their behalf. So that said, putting that to bed, I'd like to move us into a public hearing in regards to what we propose to do with our 2022, 2023 district calendar. Open that meeting right now. We have no one in attendance, no one is speaking to us electronically. I will close that meeting and move us into our action agenda. So let's go to 6.1 and talk about a calendar.
The calendar is reflective of the draft that I showed at retreat, along with our discussion. Not greatly different than what we've grown accustomed to here. Based on the earlier out in May and the discussion at retreat, I did bump up the graduation date. Seniors will be done. Outside of that, I don't think there were any other edits from our discussion last week.
I did ask around for opinions on graduation dates. I heard from quite a few people, and excuse me. I did break it down by percentages on who responded. 36% of people wanted it changed to be off of Memorial Day weekend. 64% wanted to keep it that way. A few of the people that wanted to keep it were open to having it switched if it was 2 to 3 years in advance. Because there are multiple families that have already put reservations down for a venue for 2023 graduation. So if you remove the people that were open to changing it, given 2 or 3 year notice, it's about 50-50 for the people.
So how many total people responded?
22.
Anybody else have any anecdotal discussions or approaches by this?
Personally, I have not received any feedback myself from the public, but I did see your post. Found that interesting. I wonder, did we do any formal polling of the staff about the date?
Anytime I've talked to staff about it, the opinion has been, it'd be nice to not be on the 3-day restriction for those that attend.
Talk about that.
One of the interesting comments that I heard was several of the people that were vocal about changing it mentioned that it's not just about the graduating seniors, that there's students who are part of the choir and band, their families would like to do it. That's good thought about that.
Graduation, so
It seems like as is the case with most of the issues that come before us, sometimes I don't have a real strong opinion when it's first presented to me, but until I get to discuss it out in the community and talk with people, that tends to galvanize my position a little stronger. And I think after hearing what limited community support and community input and people that I've talked to, that I'm pretty firmly coming down on the position to move commencement away from Memorial Day weekend for various reasons, but I just think any decision that the board makes regarding commencement is going to be met with some degree of disappointment or resistance. I think either way, really the percentage of people that really have a strong opinion one way or another is probably pretty small. I think I just see this as a way over the past couple of years, 3-day weekends have always been really nice and really valuable. And I think after the last couple of years, every 3-day weekend we can get and give to the community is all that much more now. We'll be able to get Memorial Weekend back to families in the community, and that weighs heavily with me, especially teachers and staff. I don't, there's various other reasons, factors that go into it. I think of just being able to unofficially start the summer earlier. Like giving that weekend back to people. Gosh, hasn't it been kind of an issue in past years that the city has waited to open the pool until after Memorial Weekend? I may be off base on this, but I thought it was because of lack of help.
Yeah, it's a staffing issue. But I'm not sure. With this anyway, we talked a little bit about that. And staffing is gonna still be there, especially with the students that have to be available to run. So I'm not sure that matters. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just kind of my feelings on the issue. You know, let's give the community, all of our families, especially our teachers and staff, you know, we can't do a whole lot for our teachers and staff in some ways. But any little way that we can to give that weekend back to them. I think it's important, and I think that's where I'll probably fall on the issue when we vote. Just to move it out of Memorial Day weekend.
I think anecdotally, we spoke also that a lot of the neighboring districts do not have their graduation ceremony on Memorial Day anymore, correct? This weekend, typically.
Most don't, yeah. I want to say, I don't know if Ames still does, but I know they did a couple of years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, it's all the same day. I don't know if they still do. They're the only one that I was aware of.
That still have it on.
That did the last time.
Yeah.
It came to my attention, right, and that was 3 or 4 years ago. Sure.
I had very limited conversations with anyone outside of families that have children the same age as mine. So everything I'm going to say is really couched with recent experience. And those individuals have shared, I think I said this at the retreat too, it would have been nice to have a day to just relax or a weekend to not have to do anything and support and moving away from Memorial Day weekend for the actual ceremony itself. And these would be recent parents of recent graduates, because that's a busy time for a family unit. And so I appreciate those comments. And based on some of our recent experience too, I understand that we're not from this area, so all of our family comes from out of town too. And we did run into an issue that there was not, for whatever reason, in 2018, that when we didn't have places for them to stay for that Memorial Day week. So that's a concern too.
I guess my biggest concern with changing it is for those families who already put a deposit down for that year. I don't know how many families that is. I know it's more than one. I don't know how easy that is to change.
I would think 15 and a half months in advance would be sufficient. Time to alter plans or most plans, but for sure. I didn't think you could reserve any city facilities more than 12 months in advance. Maybe I'm off base on that.
Making a schedule over a year out, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I do know a few venues that will only go one calendar year in advance, but I don't know. I can't speak to it.
I'm looking at the community building right now, which is the building down the fairgrounds, and that's scheduled out those weekends of the 20th and 27th. So,
Up 23.
yeah, 23.
So you probably have some that will do that, and others that won't.
She schedules that for.
Yeah, I don't know. The club, I believe, is 1 year. I'm not sure with every.
I'm gonna split the baby on this one. I'd like to slow step away. Jenny and I empty nest. I have no children. For graduation, empty house or open houses are a thing of the past. and I don't have that concern. To me, it's just a weekend graduation. It's always been what it's been, but I'm not so vested in that tradition that we can't change it. And I think if it suits more people, we should. But I'm not running at it. I'm gonna walk to it. So I guess Macy kind of speaks to where I'm at. This is a little bit, yeah, if we get there in 3 years, 2 years, yeah, that's fine. But as far as jumping there next year, to me, it's not a gotta have, it's a wanna have. You know, you've got the difference between needs and wants. Some would want to do. And I appreciate you going to trouble to ask community, and glad a number of them responded, but. So we move it sometime here coming up, that's fine with me if we don't do it. We start 22nd here, next calendar, next school calendar year, so be it, but.
So I think what you're saying, Marty, is that we should try to long-term target that 21st date, a week before Memorial Day.
One of the things that
Not
hurt me,
necessarily a year from now.
we sometimes have conversations only amongst ourselves about things that impact other people's lives.
Sure.
In regards to programming, changes. We're having a conference discussion. That's no small thing. And we're not talking to the community about this, we're talking to ourselves. So it's, for me, I always step outside of the work I set, the meetings I go to, in the sense of just like maybe a little lead time. Just to say, okay, this is what we're proposing to do, this is why we want to do it. We were just wanting to know if there's any real negatives to be had out of it. And once again, like public comment, if it turns into crickets, then we just go, that's what it is.
So I would be fine with that as well. I think we should let the public know that that's our plan is to move it to the 21st, well, the weekend before Memorial Day, and make that kind of a long-term plan.
Like a board goal, this is what we want to do.
So, but I think we gotta make the public know that we are planning to do that, say, 2024 then, because
Right.
if they're planning on 2 years in advance, finding venues for graduation, we need to let them know that.
And here we start tonight. You take yourself out of, like, my disclaimer is, I'm going to open houses, I'm not having open houses. I'm going to graduation, but nobody in my family is graduating. So whatever weekend it is, it really doesn't move the needle in my world.
It's gonna move the needle my world for a while yet.
And it should, because the thing is, like, clearly you might not be in the details on planning, but I'll bet you're gonna get involved.
Oh, yeah, personally looking at it, I would appreciate having a Memorial Day weekend as well this year, but we're not going to, so. But yeah, I can completely understand the rationale, and especially from the staff and the students that are involved in graduation ceremonies, to give them that weekend back, would be great.
I think that is a laudable goal, and I hope that this board or the next does that.
So once again, we need to, yes, if we're planning to do that, we need to start doing that.
We haven't talked about this for a month.
Right. So.
So if we're
again,
looking to do that, what are the options? Are the options? Have like a public comment on it?
We just
or-
did.
Okay, so now I have another one. Would we have another one, or would we just say, no, we're gonna have it the weekend before this, like this X year?
I think since this is an action item, you have the ability to move dates around with administration's blessings and the fact that it's doable, and say that anything after this, or starting on this year or date, we do things different. So if you don't want, just looking at this calendar that's before us now, if what you're saying is that you don't want the 21st, you want it on the 28th, and you tell the world, A, that's what I'm going to vote for tonight, and B, going forward in the 23-24 school year, we're going to go to the weekend prior to Memorial Day as a school district. That sound like what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning. I just, based on the numbers that I heard from the community, that's exactly what they're saying. I wanted to hear more from teachers
Yeah, that's no small thing. That's not
Yeah.
lost on me because there's so much prep on a run up because
Yeah.
you've got the night of awards. I mean, there's a lot of the graduation you don't even see unless you have a reason to go to those things. That is a whole evening of scholarships. And we just do the quick snap on those things.
So Dr. Gray, if commencement in 2023 were to remain Memorial Day weekend, would that change the schedule in any other way?
No,
So would it change the seniors' last day?
no.
I just have a hard time believing that much significant part of the percentage of the community really cares. I said to someone recently, this is my 5th year on the school board. And I didn't know the commencement was Memorial Weekend. Every year. And I'm not ashamed to say that out loud. It just hasn't been on my radar. Not something that's on my radar. This particular one in 2023 is kind of on my radar because I've got a kid in that class. So maybe I've paid a little closer attention this time around. I have pretty regular communications with other parents who have kids in the class of 2023. I haven't heard anyone, no one's reached out to me. No one has expressed a preference in our casual conversations. I haven't heard anyone that I've talked to that has made reservations for anywhere. So, I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but this, I just don't get the impression that there's going to be a groundswell of protest either way.
No, this doesn't have the angst that masking did. Okay, get there.
Dr. Gray, has there been any movement on changing the start of school, the date?
No, there hasn't been yet. I'd heard that there was a bill proposed this session. I don't know if it's going anywhere.
And so the way the calendar is set up, there's no, without being able to have flexibility, that school start date, the end of the quarter will still have to be at the first of the year after winter break.
Correct.
That's actually a bigger cause of concern for me. And I totally appreciate those parents that did respond, say, we've committed to this date and we put a deposit down, because I do know how it is difficult to change that, because my daughter was a class of 2020 and we had to change that several times. So I do appreciate that. I could support for this year leave it for 23, 24, 22, 23, leaving Memorial Day weekend with total notice that we're moving it past that.
Great, looking forward, if everything remains equal with the schedule, if there's no change in the start date. Do you foresee any problems in 23, 24 with moving the graduation date up a week? Should be
No.
any issues with that particular calendar, should there?
No, there shouldn't be moving forward. We've always used our seniors 5 days prior. But we don't certify our calendar as days. We just stuck with that. We certify it as hours. And hours is, your seniors can get out up to 30 instructional hours prior to the minimum, which is 1080. So you can see that if you look at May, 1080 falls that second week of May, and you could go 30 instructional hours before that. So I think I'm getting at the answer to your question in that the board would always have, if you wanted to have the third weekend of May every year, we would always have the flexibility under the current statute to do that with our seniors.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at.
And that's the very reason I think that you see some area school districts have their graduation the first or second week of May.
As it can.
Yeah, because,
Collins Maxwell's, be May 7th.
yeah, they're usually the first, and then there's several the next week.
Traditionally, they do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're always there.
How could they be just down the road and I'm not hearing about this until now?
Rolling stories tradition for the second week.
Yeah.
A lot of the districts, several have gone the second week that,
Well, it begs the question, why did we wait this long to talk about it? I mean, this is one of those easy ones that every year we talk about. I mean, just like,
yeah, I've actually brought this issue up before, and it just
they go in there.
didn't go anywhere, so.
I don't remember having that conversation or conversations.
I think I remember having this conversation yearly or nearly yearly since I've been on the board. And it's always kick the can, kick the can. And I guarantee you, if we do it effective 22-23 or 23-24, we'll have just as many disappointed, angry people either way.
If you give them an extra year of scheduling, they can't, they don't have that excuse, at least to say. Tell us, we've already scheduled, 2.5 years.
I had
Funny.
I had specific families say that they would be more open if we gave them advance notice of 2 to 3 years. So that's at least a few families that would be less.
Not where I live. That's why. So,
Thinks about these things 2 or 3 years in advance.
so
planners.
as I was standing getting pictures in a wedding once, and yeah, but let me finish. Here's the analogy about it. Sitting there with a guy that was not really a big fan of all we had to do, take pictures. And he turns to his cohorts, the groomsmen and the groom. He said, and this is why we don't have groom magazine.
Well, I don't know, I
And he was
appreciate-
ostracized from that moment on for the whole thing.
I appreciate the discussion on the issue and everyone's input. And it just doesn't. It doesn't sway me. I mean, I'm gonna side with the 99.8% of the people who aren't gonna be upset with it. Especially if a large percentage of those are teachers and staff. For goodness sake, if we got the opportunity to do any small thing to give them back 3-day weekend, we need to try and do it. My mental health sure appreciates a 3-day weekend a lot more than it did 3 years ago. So I guess that's why I like settling that.
Some people.
I'm ready to make a motion if discussion is. Anytime.
Nope, I was gonna tell you that sounded like a motion, Joe.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the district calendar for 22-23 school year as published, including the commencement date of May 29, 2023.
Second. Hearing none. Motion fails. Seeking another motion. Chair can't make a motion.
Dr. Gray? Any urgency in making the decision at this meeting?
Yes. What would be the delay for? It would,
Additional community input, maybe reaching out to teachers and staff and gauge their opinion, if they have a strong opinion one way or another.
it's up to the board.
I think teachers and staff would probably be in favor of such a move. I think what we're right now is for next year. So I really appreciate your view, Joe. If it was just in a vacuum as us deciding it, I would be all in favor of this calendar as proposed tonight. Given that there are some people that have expressed public opinion, at least to some of the board members, I think giving them a year before they can change is reasonable. If, and only, I mean, I would be in favor of going back to the 28th, that biggest Memorial Day weekend as graduation this year. If we then also say that the 23-24 school year will be to the week before,
That'd be your motion.
I guess if we can make a motion out of that, that would be my motion.
Okay, to paraphrase, I believe Tom said that we would move graduation date on the 22-23 calendar as received night to the 28th, making that the last Memorial Day graduation that we do here at the Beta. And starting in the 23-24 school year, we would be looking to have the third, let's do it like
The third week of
May. That's like, that's doable because it just flows with the calendar.
Yep.
Does that sound like Tom's motion? Tom needs a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to on the 22-23 school calendar that we are looking at tonight, taking graduation from the 21st to the 28th, making that our last Memorial Day weekend graduation in Nevada. And starting in calendar year 23-24, we will be moving to, as a district, a graduation Sunday of the third Sunday in May. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Opposed?
Hey,
Yeah. Motion. Thank you, everybody. That was a good conversation. Thank you for going to the trouble to solicit opinion from the community. That helps. Gives us texture and grounding. So there you go, Dr. Gray. You got a calendar. Next up, middle school floor quotes. 6.2. We have flood.
Yeah, due to some water getting underneath the floor during the sprinkler break, EMC Insurance has agreed to replace that floor this summer. Mr. Cruz has secured quotes that you have in the packet. And has provided the recommendation of the Phillips floor with the alternative bid, $129,270 plus the $1975 for a total cost of $131,245.
So when I look at this and we've got alternates there of change wood flooring to on a grade to 2 or to 3, what's that? What that the extra dollars we get us?
First grade maple is pretty much all black.
Okay.
So it's one consistent color all the way across.
That's kind of what we have right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
It's number 2.
Second grade is just as good quality, but it has a lot more color to it. If that's what you're looking for, it's really a great look. It's not my preference. There's a reason it's cheaper. because there's difference in color variations. And then you go to third grade, which is a lesser quality wood and more colorations. The floor we have now and the direction we've been going is to sand off the oil-based finish so it doesn't amber and darken, and to keep it that nice white look. So my recommendation is definitely go with the first grade maple.
How about those volleyball slates?
They are included, but if we want for some reason additional ones, they would be the additional dollar amount there. And these are the oversized ones, just in case if the floor does move, which with the HVAC that we got in there now, the temperature should not change much. The humidity shouldn't change much between seasons. The floor shouldn't move that much. But they are oversized just for that case. And I think it's, if I read in here correctly, I think 5 are already included. And the price for $450 is for additional ones. Which we should need.
I had a question about the Phillips bid as well. So the difference really between the base bid and the alternative bid, and the alternative bid is the one that you're recommending, correct?
The top of the board would be the same. It's just the underside.
So the underlay bid is the difference between the bids, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
The old school is you use the same material underneath. And if you get into the way wood behaves as it does grow, when the moisture changes, wood will grow in 3 different directions. So everybody has a difference of opinion on what should go underneath, what's the best. The basis, the higher dollar one is having the same maple pretty much. It's not quite that simple, but underneath as well, and it goes the opposite direction. The sleepers or the sub flooring that goes underneath would be a fully floating floor. But if that were to warp it all due to moisture or anything else, you'd have more undulations and floor I'm proposing here is going to be anchored to the floor. More of an engineered wood underneath instead of dimensional.
So really, we shouldn't see much of an appreciable difference to what we're saying goodbye to by what we're welcome.
Correct. Because we sanded that middle school floor, was it 3 or 4 years ago?
It's some,
So
I don't
once
think I was
once
on.
you sand it, you get to all version wood again,
Yeah.
which you've never seen. It looked nice.
Well, lighten it up too, didn't it?
Oh yeah, because you sanded off the oil-based polyurethane,
Right.
which over the years with light and stuff and ambers turns a darker color, kind of like the furniture at home. With furniture, kitchen cabinets, it just changes to a darker color. So this is floor, so we sanded that off and put a water base on there that doesn't amber. That's how you keep the white look to it, which seems to be the more desirable look. And then you have your school colors that you paint on their pop and more of a contrast.
Well, it's small dollars, but because you're always looking to finish floors during the summer. So you get to save some small pebble dollars by putting it forward.
Yeah, it all adds up.
Yeah, I know that up there.
Yeah, we could go up to 164,000, but we're getting what anything you'd ask for.
No,
That dollar amount.
I'm pleased. I just, it's down in Indianola. It's a good price. We've got the dollars coming to us. I'm glad to see your appeal was taken up. I've written request, and I'm glad to see they acted as quickly as they did.
It was supply chain shortages. I desire to commit so that we can guarantee that we get this as soon as the summer hits, we can move right in and go.
one other question I have, I guess, in the bid, Phillips, it does mention that the estimate includes removal and disposal of existing wood flooring. So how does that part of the bid affect what we're planning to do with the flooring? We talked about donating part of it. Public has any interest in the rest.
I already had that conversation, but him.
Yeah.
Because on woodwork, to say I want 3 pieces of that wood that goes out the door, I want it first right to the demo. And figured we'd probably do something like this anyway. His comment is, great, please do, because this price here from this guy is a turnkey. He provides dumpsters, expense and everything else. The other one that I'm not recommending, we'd have to pay for the dumpster expense, which would cost us because insurance would just cover it.
Yeah.
But we'd have to kind of pass it along. So we would just put that in the project.
I just wasn't sure if Phillips was counting on recovering some of that wood themselves, and do something with it, so. that's
You
not
would
the case.
think so, but, they do 15, 24s in a year.
Yeah.
They're gonna have more wood than what they can.
Sure. I just want to make sure that they weren't thinking that they were getting that.
Good question, but we had that conversation.
Good.
If we save them dumpster expense, it just saves money.
So someone would help me again with the check value from EMC was how much? again?
164,000, is that right?
That was the price that they are basing the floor replacement on. We have like $49,000 depreciation, but since we have replacement cost insurance, you take whatever percentage off, that's like 120,000. So if we spend 130, we can apply and get the rest of that back. Kind of the same thing we did over at softball. We have to prove that we did the work, and then we can apply for the.
So we're not gonna have any additional dollars. We're just gonna get a new floor.
We already got some check, already got some of the check for the carpet too, right, Brian?
Yes.
So I think we got close to it. I'm not sure what the dollar amount is.
That was my question too, already, since we already had.
That's our, yeah, thank you. That's right. We're
I
on.
was like, can we put that towards the cost of refinishing the floor for the next 40 years? Really not.
Well, yeah, those dollars, we don't.
Any dollars that we spent under $164,000, EMC saves that money. We can't.
No, we tried.
Too good to be true.
I know.
But EMC has been extremely easy to work with. They were sending us checks before we asked.
Says a lot about our insurance carrier and people we do business with. So
In the first 30 seconds, he walked in the gym and said, "We get to the floor." Okay.
What did he base that on? You know?
Well, there was conversation before he showed up.
Okay.
And he had probably as much information as he needed. But there's no argument.
well, this is a win. Yeah, I'm with you there, Mr. Vice President. Unless anybody has any questions of Dave, I would seek a motion and take the recommendation of the administration to get it forward.
Move approval of 6.2, the middle school gym floor quote. With the administration recommendation for Phillips floor, with the alternate bid of total $131,245.
Motion and a second to approve the proposal as stated. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Good job, guys. Now let's talk about what we're gonna do with 6.3.
So going back to our discussion at the retreat, did look into a couple things, talked to legal counsel about potentially gifting the logo to the city for the field house. Also talked to legal counsel about posting the remaining square footage for public bid, and they're comfortable with both of those. Within code, and Park and Rec did reach out to me and express that they would have an interest in the logo and potentially applying it to the floor inlay of the entry, maybe out of the field house, but they would find a spot for that. So our best hope, Dave and I need to look at that together. Understanding that the floor is probably gonna need to be removed in maybe 5 or 6 foot by 6 foot sections to get it out the door. The logo is bigger than that. So there would be some reconstruction there, but there is interest from the city's part, and we do have clearance to take this approach from legal counsel.
The caveat is if the city takes it, they use it. Don't want it to not fit into their plans. What looks good blocking you the door may not be something you're necessarily comfortable with doing. I get that.
Yeah, and I think if that would become the case, we could look for, yeah, we could look for another idea.
Just wanted to say words. It's a great idea. I hope it works. I'd like to see it. But it doesn't. So 6.3 is in 2 parts. So we'll take a motion. I think we kind of got where we wanted to go. If anybody's got any questions in regards to zoning the logo to the city, now would be the time to ask those questions or state any opposition. Or you can make a motion on 6.3A, and we just knock that one out and go to 6.3B.
Really need to break these two up.
No, I just wanted to lift them both on the front page of the agenda so that it was clear. I think you could make it a motion if you choose.
I would move to approve the school floor disposal plan as outlined in 6.3.
Motion and second for 6.3 as listed here. I would ask administration who's going to be taking the public bids, and they're going to come through Dave's office.
Those, we will get that posted, and we'll get it in, it's required to be in the newspaper, which we will post. We will post it online, and we will also put it in the new community newsletter. We'll post a deadline, the sealed bids will be due at a particular date to the district office.
To be announced.
To be announced.
We have a motion and a second. 6.3, any final words, thoughts? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go, Doctor. Consent agenda. Got a lot in there. I don't know what font you were using on the bills, Brian, but it seems like smaller. Nobody's got anything? I see what the at-risk dollars are, Brian. What are the dollars for the SBRC application?
We sent maybe right now we sent about 6 kids down to future school district. Grant Oil program. And based on discussions they've had with the state. Recover administrative funds. It's the administrative costs is what we charged for the school.
Making application, we're asking for the dollar figure, right?
Yes.
That would be.
That's page 50. On page 61 and 62. I apologize for not pulling that out of the commentary. I usually do that.
That's why we have this part. Just move all those columns to the application.
Brand Wood is $9,456.77.
And the Woodward Academy one is $2,633.46, so about $12,000 that we recoup.
We have a mechanism to recoup it. We should be going up. Any comment on the payouts we got in here? We got it, Dave.
What was that?
See, we got a payout on the
Yep.
project. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
Three were requested, you got one.
So we got two hanging. How are we doing on getting stuff done?
We will get better here shortly.
Mr. Cruz and I have a meeting, construction meeting, specifically scheduled tomorrow with the group for that very reason.
You guys want? Well, not to drag out an otherwise good meeting.
I have a question. Can you tell us a little bit about our new industrial technology teacher we're recruiting?
What I know is that he will be a first-year teacher next year. He's currently finishing up at UNI, and I believe he's originally from Forest City.
Hanson, you know this guy?
As did we.
I said you.
So, heading that candidate. Yeah.
I'm excited to be identified.
Yeah, that was kind of.
Yeah.
Like our mental health, we thought this was going to be a unicorn.
Yep.
Not down. Congratulations. Well, if nobody else has any questions, that is an action item.
Move to approve our consent agenda with the additional.
7475.
Yeah.
Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the addition to 7.4 personnel and 7.5 fundraisers. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, board member comments.
I guess I just have a question for Dr. Gray. Not to just throw you a curveball. Do you have any idea why there's a bill introduced to consolidate the AAs into 4?
No, but there are a lot of bills being introduced, but I don't
I
know
wasn't
what
going.
the rhyme or reason is. Honestly, I
I was
haven't.
just shocked to see that one.
I have not been in any meetings with discussion on that particular bill.
It just kind of came out of nowhere, but that seems to be typical too.
That has happened, those types of things have happened before. That's not the first time AEA has been brought up in that regard. It's usually brought up as what someone believes could be a cost saving measure, you know. There've been similar discussions about the state of Iowa, why we have 99 counties and we could have 6 or, 4. Some believe it's a cost saving measure and others not so much. So yeah, I don't know where that one will go.
Well, Ben's not here to congratulate him, but it looks like they did really well at beach on Saturday.
When we got him in a rotary, I think he's taking anatomy and physiology now. And it kind of cuts some of his time coming out to rotaries on Wednesday, but I gotta tell you, if you did see what I have seen here in past months, when he stands up and speaks, they ask for him to stand up and speak, they enjoy what he has to say, and he's a welcome presence. He will go and be a great, he will make us proud. Speaking of, since we lose him here coming up, we got any candidates, Doctor?
I typically put that out. I'll have to look back. It's usually when we get back from spring break, I put that out.
Okay.
Because it's the last several weeks of school.
Lock somebody in.
Yeah, and I do know I have a reminder on the calendar. So.
I think that was one of the, those introduced students that
Yeah.
recommend having a student member, not always a member, like the word had occurred for the last how many years.
Does anybody have the number of how many school boards? Because the last I heard was like either 6 or 8 that has a student representative to their school. Anybody seen that anywhere in any literature?
No, I haven't. I think that was the number back when we were considering it. Because I reached out to a couple of them, see how they did it. I would assume that number's grown, but I don't know. I'm sure.
If there was a more current number, I just want to hear it. But now we already got there. Anybody else? Amazing. Hearing none. Calendar, flip the page, and our next meeting will be on the 21st. Date's all.
I will be out of town that date, so. People.
Then looking the next month, will people be here on the 7th? March? And you'll be gone that night.
Yeah, I just looked at it, I'm good for February, March, but every single meeting date after that, in June. Will be the track meets or baseball games, so I might be a little hit and miss. Let's see.
Well, just a heads up, that your fellow board members know, that administration know, because nothing's more aggravating to be 2 people waiting for the third. So, hearing nothing else? Nobody has anything else? Just seek a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second to adjourn, all in favor? All right, good night, good job. We're sitting there reflecting on our, I don't recall having such a glowing